Hey everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. Happy New Year. Check out the new outro. Stay to the end of this video to see it. So here's the deal. The mayor of Portland, Oregon has vowed to increase penalties for anyone who vandalizes property or commits acts of violence in the city. They're looking to enact new legislation to do that. This comes after several days of civil unrest, which resulted in smashed store windows, graffiti, and so forth. Police say that commercial-grade fireworks were launched at the federal courthouse and Portland Justice Center, and they themselves have paint balloons, rocks, bricks, Molotov cocktails, and frozen water bottles hurled at them. Now, according to Portland authorities, the group was made up of largely white males, mostly young, some middle-aged, and they described them as, quote, violent Antifa and anarchists. However, they weren't the only ones out there, and this is what pisses me off, because they don't know who's truly Antifa and who's not. Anyone can dress up in all black and commit acts of violence. This is exactly what the Proud Boys are planning to do at the Wednesday Million MAGA March. They're planning to dress up as Antifa and commit acts of violence and destroy property so that Antifa gets blamed for it. But at this event, or at these events, I should say, because there was more than one, cops started moving crowds back from the downtown area where a lot of this was taking place. And there were also militia groups, not dressed as Antifa. They were dressed as themselves. Some of them dressed in their signature black and yellow for the Proud Boys, and others who were clearly either militia members or who were there to wage war against Antifa members, which is ridiculous at saying, I'm all for fascism. I'm pro-fascism. That's what it is if you're against Antifa. So take a look at these videos. This is some of the interactions between these militia groups and cops, including the Proud Boys.
You're fucking Antifa! You're a cunt! You're a fucking cunt! Push them! Fuck Antifa! Sidewalk! There's no We're fucking moving, bitch! What's wrong with you? Fuck that! You ain't gotta fucking shoot me, you fucking cocksuckers!
So for anyone listening on the podcast, the videos show cops in riot gear with batons, and they're moving the crowds back to clear the area. They're not being violent. They're not hitting them with batons or tear gassing them as they did to peaceful BLM protesters over the summer. They're not shooting them with pepper spray as they did with George Floyd protesters. They're simply stepping towards them in a forceful manner, sometimes physically pushing them backwards, but not hard enough to knock them down, and only when they refuse to move. And these white supremacist, spoiled brat, perpetual victims are getting up in their faces, screaming and calling them names. I mean, first of all, what would happen if black people did that? If black men did that, they would be knocked down. They would be handcuffed. They would be arrested. And some of these militia members, by the way, aren't even wearing masks. They're up in these cops' faces. Now, the cops do have on masks. They do have on a face shield. But they're up in their faces in the middle of a deadly pandemic. So all of a sudden, now, because they're not getting their way, for once, because they're not being coddled, they're not being catered to, they're not being, given water and praise, now cops are Antifa. Now they're saying that the cops are Antifa. These America loving back the blue patriots. They're calling officers names like the C word because, for once, you don't get to do whatever the hell you want. But take a look at these other clips. These are my favorite, and I'll explain why afterwards.
Who the fuck do you work for? Us! I stand here fucking flashlight. We didn't pay you guys. We stand for you. And you fucking shoot at us? Unfucking real. Fuck the blue. You guys are just as bad as those fucking commies. Unfucking believable. There you go. Fuck you.
This is for walking on us today.
Yeah, I've been there for you all fucking summer. Fuck you.
So you heard this guy, right? You hear him yelling, who do you work for? Everyone, every tax-paying citizen. They don't just work for you, guy. They're supposed to work for all of us. And that's what people of color and their allies have been saying forever. We all pay their salaries. Yet they haven't acted fairly. They haven't kept a level playing field. They let you get away with murder, almost literally. They themselves have literally gotten away with murder. I guess, literally they are letting people like Kyle Rittenhouse get away with murder. But, this is the quintessential white supremacist mentality. They get just the tiniest bit of the same treatment. They get a itty bitty teeny weeny little bit of a taste. And yes, that was Rosanna Dana. They get a little taste of how people of color are treated or their allies when they're doing nothing wrong. Sometimes even when they're standing on their own property. And these guys lose their shit. How would they feel if they were treated that way their entire lives? How would they ever deal with if they were pushed around and treated with disdain on a daily basis for decades, physically manhandled by cops constantly? Their little privileged egos could not handle it. Yet they can't seem to step outside of their little victimhood bubble long enough to realize that, hey, maybe I should have some compassion for these other people. This shit kind of enrages me. Yeah, it might make you feel like burning it all down. Yeah, decade after decade, you're treated unfairly, you're treated differently than others, and you're not supposed to be upset. And for those of you on the podcast, if you could hear, there's a video of a woman yelling at cops. What you don't know if you're on the podcast is that she lays a flag on the ground and she walks over it. And then other people follow her and they walk over it. They wipe their feet on it. And all the while they're yelling at the cops. Oh, but wait, I thought Colin Kaepernick and others who kneeled during the national anthem were disrespecting America and the American flag. I thought they were disrespecting our military who fought and died for that flag. But you can throw it down on the ground and wipe your feet on it? So at the slightest bit of equal treatment in this country for these white supremacists, oh, it's all out the window. The flag, military, the country, they don't care about anything because it affected them. So they're willing to spit in the face of our service members by doing way worse than just taking a knee. All of a sudden, they hate America because they're not having their asses wiped for them by the cops. Oh, well, welcome to a tiny fraction of what people of color experience every day in this country, girls and boys. Doesn't feel good, does it? Kind of makes you feel like you're not part of the American team and the American dream. These people are throwing tantrums because for 4 years, over 4 years now, they've gotten away with everything. They've wrongfully believed that they were going to turn this country back into a white supremacist haven, that we were going to go back to the days of segregation. They really believed that the vast majority of Americans were racist just like them. And they sat back, they had no problem, and watched Trump blow through every law, every norm without consequences. And they thought they could do the same. Oh, well, guess what, bigoted boys and girls? There are consequences for your actions. And it's not your country alone. And as they've said so many times over the past 4 years to so many of us who just want our country to do better, to be better. So many of us who just want to see everyone have equality and be treated fairly and not be shot simply because they have more melanin in their skin. So I'm going to say to them what they've said to us for 4+ years. If you don't like it, you can leave. You can get out of our country if you don't like the way it's run. God, what a bunch of whiny frickin' babies. One time they get just a little tiny fraction of the treatment that we've all been saying is wrong when people aren't doing anything. But these guys, they can be up in cops' faces. They can be screaming at them. They can be calling them names. They can be refusing to leave, completely defying their orders. And because they get a teeny tiny little fraction of what it's like to be not even mistreated, they were just being handled. They were just treated as everyone else would be, as people without privilege are, like a normal citizen, not a privileged ass. And what do? I'm going to wipe my feet on the flag. I'm going to call cops the C word. I'm going to tell them they're Antifa, they're communists. Womp womp. Thoughts and prayers. All right, guys, as always, thanks for watching and listening. Please like, share, subscribe, and I will talk with you soon. Take care.